Hi, thank you so much for joining me in the Louie file today. I'm gonna start, I think, a little bit of probably like a little series, and it's going to be based or coming from John chapter 17, the Gospel of John chapter 17, which most people, and even my Bible I have open in front of me, calls this his high priestly prayer. So it's a lengthy, the whole chapter is Jesus talking to his Father. But today, I would like to set this up, so we're not really going to get into John 17 probably at all today in this video, but stick around. Hopefully we'll move into it next time. But today I'd like to give you a quick summary of how we get to this place where he's praying this prayer. The Gospel of John is so great. I would ask that you would read through it if you haven't, but there's a reason Jesus is at this point. He is in a room with his 11 disciples. Now, he had 12, but now he has 11, and there's a reason for that. In the beginning chapters of John, the second chapter actually, chapter 2, Jesus goes into the temple, makes a whip, turns tables over, and gets all over the people in there, and he says, "You're making my Father's house a house or a den of iniquity, a place of thieves." So he runs them all out. Well, that doesn't start his it doesn't grant him very many friends right off the start. Then if you go a few chapters in, chapter 4 I think it is, he reveals he not only is talking with a Samaritan woman, him being Jewish and a male, he should have never been in Samaria, he should have never been talking to a woman. But we find him sitting at a well asking a Samaritan woman for a drink. Astounding. This is totally against all protocol, Jesus. Don't you know better than this? What I would like for you to see is that his ministry, what we see in the Gospel of John, is a build-up that takes us ultimately to the cross, the death, burial, and resurrection, and then eventually the ascension. But there's a path that we have to go on to get there. So he clears the temple. That doesn't make anybody happy. Then the rumor gets spread around, I'm sure, that he's talking with a woman, and not only a woman, but a filthy old Samaritan woman, a half-breed. And then we move on from there. In chapter 5, he heals this man that had been lame, unable to walk for 38 years, and they accuse him of working on the Sabbath. How are you doing this? You can't heal him on the Sabbath. So they cared nothing about the man and his problem. They just cared about their laws. That didn't endear him to any of the religious leaders either. And then he finds himself talking with thousands of people that are starving. They're hungry. So he prays to the Father, and the Father multiplies this food. Thousands of people are fed from a little boxed lunch. So they try to grab him by force and make him the king. This is the kind of king we want. We want one that can provide everything for us, so we don't have to work and we don't have to labor. We can just have the state or the government, the king, take care of all of our needs. Think about it. If he can heal us and he can provide miraculous food, what more could you want, right? But Jesus didn't allow them to do this. And then in John 8, he finds himself in the middle of a test. The religious leaders bring a woman caught in adultery to him, and they quiz him about what to do. Moses says we should stone this woman. What do you say? Well, he ends up letting her go. Wow, that made them look foolish too. It's an amazing way that he does that. And then in John 8, after that, he has a pretty heated conflict with the religious leaders, and he tells them that they have no room for his word. You're not hearing what I'm saying because truth is not in you. You can't know the truth because you're of your father, the devil, and he's the father of lies. And it's his lust you're doing. He's trying to clue them in that they're a puppet. They're a sin slave. But they don't get it. It just makes them more and more angry. And then in chapter 9, he heals a man that was blind from birth, which no one's ever heard of such a thing. And they accuse Jesus of being a sinner. Over and over again, the tension is mounting. And then in chapter 12, I think it is, pretty sure it's chapter 12, he raises his friend Lazarus from the dead. That is the last straw with the religious leaders. We can't have him healing and feeding and multiplying food and accusing us to our face and making us look bad in the temple. And I mean, we just can't have this anymore. And now he's raising people from the dead. We definitely have to stop this guy. Not only him, but we need to kill Lazarus too. We need to get rid of any kind of thing that points to Jesus as the solution. All these people are following after him, and we're going to lose our place. The Romans are going to come in here, and they're going to stop us from being able to do what we're doing. So they put out an all-points bulletin for Jesus that night. Or, as a friend of mine likes to say, they put out a bolo. They said, be on the lookout for Jesus. So Jesus goes underground. He stops talking publicly, and he finds himself in a room. Well, first he finds himself with Lazarus and Mary and Martha, and Mary, cries and anoints his feet and wipes it off with her hair, and that provokes Judas to say, well, I can't believe she spent all that ointment. We should have sold it and gave it to the poor. So Judas has got this high, lofty view of helping the poor, is what he thinks. And Jesus, he just receives this worship from Mary, and he says, chill out. Let her do what she's doing. She's doing it. They didn't understand that she was doing this to prepare him for his burial. He's going to be crucified soon, and no one ever really gets to finish anointing the body. Did you catch that? Mary comes to the tomb, but she's too late. She's going to finish doing the body preparations, but it's too late. He's gone. So she does it here. It's the sovereignty of God in action. Anyway, so he finds himself in the Last Supper scene. In John 13 through 17, we see some amazing things being said and done with Jesus and his disciples. In chapter 13, he gets down on the floor and he washes the disciples' feet. And he's illustrating to them that being a servant is who the greatest is in the kingdom of the Father. It's not about who's greatest and who's better than and more powerful or smarter. It's about who's the servant of all. Judas finally just gives in. He succumbs to Satan, and Satan enters him at this meal, and Jesus sends him away to do what he has to do, which is to go and betray him to the authorities. So meanwhile, we find this amazing scene unfold in front of us. After Judas leaves, Jesus starts telling his disciples about the gift of the Comforter, the Spirit of God himself. And he tells them in many different ways. He says, I'm going away, but it's better for you that I go away, because if I don't go away, I can't send the Comforter. But when I do send him, he will not only be with you, but he will be in you forever. And he goes on to say, it's really me and my Father. It's going to be Father, Son, and Spirit move into you. And I'm going to be the real vine here. I'm the true vine, and you're going to be the branches. And I'm going to produce the fruit, and you're going to get to bear it as you abide in me and me in you. I'm going to leave you my peace. I'm going to put my joy in you so that your joy can be made complete. And I'm going to tell you that the Holy Spirit is going to convict the world of sin and of righteousness and the judgment to come. And he says, I got many more things to tell you, but right now you can't stand what I would like to tell you. You don't have the capacity to take it. So at the end of John 16, he tells them, he says, these things I've spoken to you so that in me you may have peace. In the world you have tribulation, but take courage, I have overcome the world. So that brings us right up to John 17, to this amazing prayer, and we're going to start into that prayer on the next video. But I want you to know that the disciples, the remaining 11, and Jesus are in this room hearing this amazing stuff, this amazing promise of this Spirit of God moving into them. And they can't compute it all. They can't get it all. And I mean, rightly so. If you're lost or you don't have the Spirit of God, you can't know the things of God. But when the Spirit does come and he moves in, he will reveal all things. He will lead you into all truth. He will remind you of the things that I've said, is what Jesus tells us. Later on in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, the Apostle Paul tells us the natural man cannot receive the things of God, for they are foolishness to him. They are spiritually discerned, and without the Spirit you simply can't know. So Jesus finishes up this time with his disciples with this magnificent, amazing, lofty, deep, thorough prayer in John 17, which I'm not even going to pretend that I can dig out of what it is, but I'm hoping that we can go through it slowly enough and we can think about it and roll it over in our minds, meditate on it, and receive it and chew it and swallow it and let it become part of us. And we'll see, really, this prayer is the seed of what Paul's message, the Apostle Paul's message, on the other side of the resurrection, on the other side of the ascension, on the other side of the Spirit actually being poured out. The Apostle Paul is expounding in a lot of ways on this prayer. And it is answered. Jesus' prayer is answered. All right, so I hope you'll join me. I hope that's enough of a setup or an introduction. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next Louie File.